Just gonna wait for you guys to come on in. Hi, Instagram. Hi, Facebook. Hi, YouTube. I hope everyone had an amazing what was yesterday again? President's Day. Good morning, Boss Fivery. Good morning. Good morning, Humble. Good morning, Brad Star. We're just gonna jump right into it. Today is an interesting one. When I say fun, meaning, not making light of the situation, but more of it's interesting to kind of like dissect, and understand this case because I know a lot of people, have so many comments or trying to understand like, what's going on with that case. Good morning to you all. I can see all your good mornings. Good morning to everyone. If this is your first time tuning in, my name is Aisha Chidole. I'm an immigration lawyer in the United States, and I represent clients in all 50 United States with their immigration matters, humanitarian-based cases, family-based cases. We help with all of those. If you would like to schedule a consultation, call 407-995-6567. You can also send a WhatsApp to 404-333-8751. Don Worm from says, what was yesterday? I'm crying. I'm so sorry to hear that. I hope everything is well with you. But yesterday was President's Day. Key Marley says, how much is a consultation? We charge $150 for a consultation. So I want to talk about Simon Guobadia. And, for some of you, you may never have heard this name before. And then for those of you who watch Real Housewives of Atlanta, or who know Portia Williams, who now goes by Portia Guobadia, you probably know what I'm talking about. Portia is a reality star who featured on Real Housewives and left for a little bit. And then there was some drama about her marrying another cast member's spouse, which was Simon Guobadia, who is a very successful, wealthy businessman here in Atlanta. And they've, at least had a happy marriage as it appears, on social media. And then as of 2 days ago, basically news got out after Portia signed back on to be on Real Housewives of Atlanta, that basically he was having citizenship issues because he was denied citizenship. And, but with that came a whole bunch of information that maybe many of us were not privy to. So basically, essentially what it is that, so Simon basically came into the United States. This is a quick summary, in 1985 or so. And, when he came in here, B1, B2, temporary visa, just for travel. He overstayed his time. And during that time, he got married, and allegedly, and everything here I'm saying is allegedly. First of all, I don't know if it's the Simon Guobadia. I don't know if the story is real. But I'm just giving you guys the tea and just talking about it from an immigration perspective. And allegedly, basically he had a marriage that was for the purpose of evading immigration, and not necessarily a legitimate marriage. And that basically created or initiated a deportation proceeding where he basically left the United States because of that. And then he was able to enter back in the next year with another, tourist visa. And when he entered, basically he was arrested, for credit card fraud, bank fraud, use of an unauthorized vehicle, and basically different felony charges. And this prompted the U.S. to initiate another deportation proceeding, against him. And during this time, while that was happening, what he ended up doing was he ended up using, allegedly, again, everything I'm saying is allegedly. I'm just reading what the article says and what the court documents say. He ended using, he basically put in an application with a fake identity. They used to have this program called Special Agricultural Worker. It's like SAW. Back in the day, probably I was still like in elementary school when this was happening. And when he did that application, he failed to include his criminal history in there. And so basically his green card got approved. And, with his green card being approved, it allowed him to stay here in the United States, under that identity and with that green card. And so, he filed for citizenship. The first time it was denied. I want to say, and I might be wrong on this, that he filed for citizenship, in 2016, that was denied. And then he filed again in 2022, and that was denied. And then, in 2023, basically, he basically put in another application and asked the court to basically, overturn that denial, essentially. And the court basically agreed with U.S. Citizenship and Immigration that, he's not eligible for citizenship. And so basically, they denied that. And so we're kind of at an impasse, like what's going to happen, whatever. So I just want to talk about the immigration perspective, and what this could mean. So the first thing, I always say to people all the time, when they say, I've been here, I've had a green card for 5 years, or I've had a green card for 3 years based on marriage. Can I just go ahead and put in my, citizenship application? So, what I always say to people is, it's the N400 is the most simple form to complete, but the most difficult status to attain. Citizenship in the United States is the most difficult status to attain. So basically, whatever they they overlook in your green card process, like the level of diligence that they go through with a citizenship is just like top notch, like they're going back to your parents, like they're going back to your B1, B2 visa, they're going back to every alias, anything, to find out anything in your history that can stop you from becoming a U.S. citizen, or that, because citizenship essentially for the United States is the price. And, once you become a citizen, it's almost, impossible for anything else to happen at that point. So, that's one of the first things. Like, if you're going to a lawyer and you're wanting to apply for citizenship, you need to be very, very honest about every single thing in your past, because that will determine whether or not it makes sense for you to be filing a citizenship application, or just sit it out and just have your green card and continue to renew your green card. Secondly, let's unpack some of the issues that he has. So the great thing about immigration is that while immigration is very, very complex, immigration can also be very, very forgiving, depending on what or the different issues that you could potentially have. Like, so with some types of cases, or some types of issues, there are potential waivers that you can request, and ask for forgiveness based on certain misrepresentation, or criminal incidents, and stuff like that. The biggest challenge personally that I see here in this case, and I'm just going based on surface information, is overcoming the marriage fraud or sham marriage, if that is what really led to his initial deportation. So, from a strategic standpoint, a lot of us as attorneys have probably all wondered in our brains, well, what was the strategy here? Like, why would the lawyer continue to apply, knowing fully well that this green card was obtained based on fraud, and knowing fully well that he was going to get his citizenship denied, because whatever incident happened in 2016 is no different from what happened in 2022. And one part of me, I always try to think about devil's advocate, was that, is this a strategy to get him into removal proceedings, so that he can then try and do it the correct way? It could be. So let's talk about that. So, sometimes, being famous or being a celebrity or being in, that sort of limelight, sometimes you end up being the one who's made an example of. An example of that is Real Housewives of New Jersey. I'm sure you guys remember Teresa's husband, Joe Giudice, who ended up serving his time in jail, but ended up being deported to Italy, after being in this country since he was 2 years old. So this is a person who came to this country when he was 2 years old, got deported when he was over 40. So really, America is his country, like the only country he knows. He had been a green card holder for this entire time, but he never filed for citizenship, because well, I don't I don't really need it. Like, my wife is a citizen, my 4 children are a citizen, but then he was made an example of. So if that's the strategy here, the things that, they're going to want to consider is, one, him, being married to a U.S. citizen. So there's something called cancellation of removal, right? And so let's say, they put him in deportation and you want to file cancellation of removal, where we're saying basically the green card should be granted to him because, he's now been here for more than 10 years. And in that 10 years, he's been squeaky clean. He's a model citizen. He's probably employs hundreds of people, hundreds of United States citizens, and brings a lot of economic capital to the United States and to the, state of Georgia. He has a qualifying relative who's his spouse, who, you have to show hardship to. Some arguments that can be made, on her behalf, like when you're doing hardship waivers to show, you can't deport him because it's going to cause hardship to his U.S. citizen spouse. One argument that you can make is, of course, that Portia, has a child who's a U.S. citizen and who has a different father. So granted, this is a rich man, and wherever he goes and lives, he's probably going to be okay. But the question is, how will that affect Portia's daughter and her not being able to have a relationship with her father if she has to relocate to another country? So that is real hardship. If you watch Real Housewives of Atlanta, I remember that Portia definitely had some trauma not growing up with her father. I remember she, one of the things that she talked about was how, her sister, who she's very close to, was, her mother was his second wife, and, they grew up together, and that she suffered a lot of post-traumatic stress, from not being able to be raised by her father. And she didn't want that, for her daughter. And so this, in and of itself, that's already a PTSD psychological evaluation, and how traumatic that would be, if her child has to leave. And the question is, will her husband even agree? So, sorry, not her husband, will her baby father even agree? Like, so will PJ's dad even agree, like, for her to go there? So there's definitely some hardship that they can make there. There's definitely some hardship, in just basically adjusting to living in another country when, you have this career here and you're doing all those things here. I mean, yeah, people, have been making fun and laughing and saying, she can probably join Real Housewives of Lagos, but I think that there are many missed business opportunities, for her not being here. But I think that a lot of these things are potential arguments, but I think that the biggest issue he's going to have is the marriage fraud. It's the marriage fraud issue, because there's no waiver for marriage fraud. There's no waiver for sham marriage. So the biggest issue would be him needing to prove that that marriage that he was deported on was actually a legitimate marriage, and it wasn't, a fraudulent marriage. So, so it's going to be interesting just to watch and see what happens, But honestly, like, from a strategic standpoint, I certainly would not have advised someone who has these amounts of marriage fraud, incidents, felony cases, obtained your green card incorrectly, to go for citizenship, just because, there's quite a high risk that he will be deported, that his green card will be revoked, and these, he might be deported. But, I mean, I always wish the best for them. And I hope that, this is a strategy, and that, they're able to show hardship, and he's able to get the cancellation of removal. All right, let me answer some of the questions I see rolling in. Oh my God, so many comments. Sorry, guys, I missed all of this. My best number is 407-995-6567. You can also send a WhatsApp to 404-333-8751. If I schedule a consultation, will I be able to talk to you directly? It could be me or one of the other attorneys that works at my firm. If you specifically want to speak to me, you can specifically say you want to speak to me. Sometimes, it might mean that it might take a couple more weeks, but we're all equally as good. We're all able to evaluate your case and let you know whether your case qualifies or not. Remember that no matter who you consult with, we all work as a firm, as a team, and, you your application is going to be completed correctly and submitted as best as we can get it. Okay. Kaylin, thank you very much. I appreciate it. So I keep asking this question. I filed an I-130, but I never filed an I-485 to do the adjustment. I filed the I-130 since last February. What should I do? Can I still file I-485? Gucci Ian, the answer is really going to depend on if you're eligible to file an adjustment of status. If you file this based on marriage to a U.S. citizen, you're eligible, so you can. If it's not, and you filed it based on being married to an LPR or not being married, and you're in a family preference category, we're going to need to know a little bit more to determine if you're eligible for adjustment of status. Kay Marley, I don't believe we have any appointments available today because I'm booked solid, but you can call the office and see. It's $150 for a consultation, not $50. I'm curious about something. I'm on the vow process. However, I got engaged. I want to get married, only a religious ceremony or a common law in South Carolina. Will that be okay? Absolutely not. Everybody loves Gigi. That will not be okay. Do not get married until they make a decision on your vow case. If you do get married and USCIS finds out about this, or mistakenly gives you a green card, you're going to be in the same situation as Simon Guobadia, where you're not going to get your green card because, your citizenship, because you're going to say basically, you got married and, you shouldn't have gotten married while your case was pending. So if you want to stay engaged, by all means, stay engaged, but do not sign any dotted lines, whether it's common law marriage or religious marriage, as long as the marriage is recognized as a legal marriage. Do not do it. You can wait a few. It amazes me, it's the good and the bad side of how much and how quickly people come out of traumatic marriages and want to jump into another marriage, which shows humanity. It shows that people just want to be loved and they want companionship. On the same side, you wonder if people are operating from a place of trauma, because when you listen to a lot of victims, you're able to identify a lot of trauma and feeling loved and wanted just from, even from their parents. Like a lot of this stems back and just the feeling of belonging, and in as much as those things are something that as humans we desire, I always say, just pause, and allow yourself to get your status of freedom. Let that be one less thing that you're worried about before you sign the dotted lines to another marriage. Okay. Is it true that by April 1st, it'll be free to apply for WP? I don't know what WP is, but what is true is that if you are a VAWA applicant or you are filing for an I-751 based on abuse, by April 1st, it's going to be free. This is amazing. So in as much as, filing fees increase and filing fees increasing, but if you have a humanitarian-based case, your application process, including your waiver and all that stuff, is going to be free, which is incredible. It's incredible news, for victims of domestic violence and abuse and trafficking and serious crimes. It is amazing. I think this is the best thing USCIS could do. So from a strategic standpoint, you can submit your application after April 1st, so you don't have to pay a filing fee. Okay. Pacific Blue says, I think he has a slim chance of qualifying for a waiver. Who knows, we'll see what happens. Someone said, if he's not eligible, how is he allowed to stay? Well, technically right now he can stay here because he's a green card holder. So you are going to have to, an immigration judge has to terminate his green card, so in order for you to, your green card can't just be taken away from you because your citizenship was denied. Because a lot of time people are like, oh my gosh, my citizenship was denied, doesn't mean I don't have a green card anymore. Usually an immigration judge has to terminate your green card. It's a little different if you have a conditional removal and now that they allow USCIS officers to terminate it. So until that happens, he's still very much a green card holder. Okay. Ahida said, I think he can reapply in 10 years for his citizenship. So that is actually not the question or the issue. The issue is that, in order for you to get citizenship, proof of good moral character is one thing, and the proof of good moral character timeline really is 5 years. The issue here is that that green card was obtained via misrepresentation and fraud, allegedly. And so technically, you cannot be eligible for citizenship when you were technically not eligible for a green card. So that's the biggest issue that he's facing right now. Okay. What do I have to do if I lose my SSN and my work permit last week? I don't know where. Oh my goodness, that sucks. So with Social Security, you can just go to the Social Security Administration to get another copy. As far as your work permit, unfortunately for you, you have to put in a new application based on replacement and just have to, deal with the timeline, which could take anywhere from like 6 months to like 10 months for you to get it. That really sucks. Glamour Girl says, so why doesn't he just stay on a green card? Personally, I don't know either. He should have, and that's why I think that, this was a strategy, because I can't understand why the lawyer would have done this unless he has a strategy or has something else that we don't know about or the news is not talking about. And then also there's a school of thought where some people I've read this or seen this argument where some people say sometimes when people have that level of success, they basically think that they're above the law. And they're just like, well, I don't really care, or whatever it is, however much it's going to cost, just fix it, just get it for me. So it's possible that was a situation, with his lawyer. It's also possible that was a strategy, but, we'll never really know. Someone is asking, someone saying citizenship brings more benefits. Definitely, well, so with citizenship, in addition to the fact that, you can vote, which is really, really important, from a civics perspective, to be able to not just argue about your political opinion, or your local politics or state politics or federal politics, but this time you can actually vote to effect change. You can also run for office. You can also be on the jury if that's something that you've ever wanted to do. And also, if you do commit a crime, you're not deportable because you're a U.S. citizen, versus if you're a green card holder, there's certain crimes that if you do commit them, you are deportable. Okay. Lock Tracy, thank you so much. You're so sweet. Someone is asking, do I take cases in New York City? I take cases in every single state in the United States. I'll be happy to help you. I'm actually a licensed attorney in New York City. My first job was on Wall Street doing mergers and acquisition, securities, derivatives, class action. So New York always has a special place in my heart. So my husband received his 4-year green card, and I found out he has another family. What do you mean his 4-year green card? Are you talking about like an extension from his removal of conditions? Because there's no such thing as a 4-year green card. So you either get a 2-year or 10-year. But if you have a 2-year, you apply for removal of conditions, and then you can do an extension for 48 months. I'm assuming that's what you're probably talking about. Okay, but anyway, let me read your question. So I found out he has another family at another address. We've been separated for over a year. We've never lived at my address together, but he used that. I think that your stuff continues. Oh my gosh, that's terrible. I've heard about something on TikTok. I've been too busy working. I don't want to go down the rabbit hole, but I heard that there's something on TikTok right now, similar scenario where it's like, who did I marry or something like that, like a 50 episode, whatever. Because I've literally seen it all over my timeline about someone who was basically married to someone, and the entire time she was basically married to a stranger, living a double life. I don't know if you have a continuation of this question, Tanisha, because it kind of stopped abruptly, but I'm sorry to hear that. P Coach PC Okechukwu, we don't have an office in New York City. Our office is in Atlanta and Florida, but we take cases in New York City. So still call us, and we can work you through the process of how we deal with cases that are outside of our physical location. If someone is living in the U.S. for 13 years, but she gave birth to her daughter who was born in the United States, how can her mom get her immigration status but the daughter is 11 years old. Unfortunately for her, she would have to wait till her daughter is 21. So that's about another 10 years. When her daughter is 10 years, as long as she can show she entered into the country with inspection, meaning via land, air, or sea, that some customs and border, is there, then she can then file for a green card then. Okay. The business architect says her daughter has a dad and a mom, so she'll be fine. He needs to fix his ish. I think that it's not as simple or black and white as your statement. While in theory that sounds very simple, but the challenges of parenting and rearing children is quite complex, and the importance of children being around two active parents who want to be around their children, is something that can't just be dismissed, and say, well, go stay with your dad, no big deal, or go stay with your mom, because part of this is what creates that trauma, for a lot of people creates that mental health breakdown and things that USCIS is concerned about. So I know that a lot of times people say USCIS is tough, but honestly, they also do think about the self-interest and welfare of a lot of immigrants and the applications, and which is why they create a lot of this waivers to allow people to be able to have second chances or to rehabilitate, because as human beings, everyone deserves a second chance. Everyone deserves an opportunity to show that they can be better human beings, or to basically do better, which is why, they give you 5 years, they say good moral character for 5 years. If you did something 10 years ago, who wants that past incident of however old you were when you did that to come and haunt you for the rest of your life? You know what I mean? So it's always good to try to look at each case on a case-by-case basis, as opposed to black and white. This is what it is, because you never know when you're going to fall from grace, and you're going to need the same grace and kindness, extended to you. But anyway, I gotta jump off, guys. But this was a fun chat. I hope you guys have an amazing Tuesday, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Bye.